Alright, so this is an interesting video today, I guess. It's not really how-to, not really entertainment, but basically just a little bit of problem solving I've had to do. If you notice here, the F100 engine is quite a bit along if you're one of my subscribers and follow me, so eventually I'll get those videos out there on my progression. Hopefully I have this done soon. Kind of turned into the legacy project that just takes forever. I've just been busy with other things. But one thing with running this stock intake, which is from an early 80s Mustang with a 4-barrel carburetor, is you have this old EGR or whatever it was. I'm not even really sure. I've never even seen one of the original carburetors or really done any research into it. But you have this port here, and what it does here is you have exhaust gases that come out of this. Now that seems all fine and dandy, but the biggest problem you'll have is that a standard spacer will not fully cover this, so it'll sound like a lifter tick. And I was actually just working on a drift truck a few weeks ago, and it had the same intake and had a normal spacer. So here you go, just take a listen to it. Edelbrock carburetor removed here, and what we thought kind of sounded like a lifter tick. It seems as though, hold this fuel line out of the way so it's not running gas all over the hot engine, but this is part of the old heat riser on the stock carburetors. This is a stock intake like you saw on my F100 build, but what's going on is, this being an exhaust port, you're actually hearing that every time the cylinder fires, a little click, because we're passing a little bit of air right through here on the intake. And you can see it there on my finger, you know, exhaust gas is coming through. So I don't know, maybe we'll find something maybe to do about that, hopefully. So anyway, I decided, since I have the same intake, that I'd come up with a solution. And I looked around, there's not really anything out there. I asked a few forums and nothing really exists. The only thing that I could find is open spacers, which, let's be honest, that's just stupid, because what you're having happen is your airflow comes in, it's interrupted by all this, and that's just bad airflow dynamics there, and I don't want to do anything like that. Now there is one piece that's made, and it's like $50 or $60 or $70. It's extremely expensive, and then it moves this exhaust port to the back of the spacer. It might be an Edelbrock piece, I'm not sure. I guess I'll just post a picture right now. So anyway, as you can see, that's pretty darn expensive, and I'm like, I can come up with something better. Now, anyone can cut an open spacer, but I thought, well, it'd be nice to come up with a 4-hole deal. And here's kind of what I came up with. I had it lasered out, and it fits over there pretty good. There we go. It's tight fit, but everything is nice and port matched, you know. So you have to run these special gaskets for them and whatnot. But overall, it seems like it's going to work out, and plate it off. And that's just a piece of 10 gauge steel. So talking through some of my progression and how I came to what I did here is, when I noticed I was going to have an issue, I just took one of my boxes. This was probably an intake or a timing cover gasket here for this engine probably. So I set it over and just kind of pressed on the back until I made an impression. I flipped it over and I traced it out. And then I took it to a printer and copied it and sent myself a PDF version of it, so that basically you can then mess around with it on your computer and it's to actual size. You know, you have a reference dimension because you know how large your paper is. So naturally, then I have some pretty decent CAD software on my computer that I brought it into, and let's see if we can get out of my sketch mode, but you can see I converted it into a JPEG, overlaid it in here, traced it out in the software. So then you can see we have our spacer there, and ultimately we're able to generate a drawing file that then I can send to you know, like a sheet metal company or so, and they can have it cut out, and that's what I had. So originally this was my first piece I made. they kind of didn't measure things exactly right, but ultimately I didn't want to go with these aluminum guys anyhow because they're so thick. What you have the issue of is carburetor studs are made to be a certain length. So when you got to this plate, you know, they're made for certain normal lengths of spacers and actually, or thicknesses, and actually this is a weird thickness. I think it was 1/4 inch or whatever, but it throws everything off when you try and put a carburetor on. And you know, I don't really want to go thinner in aluminum, and they didn't have a laser that cut out anything in 1/2 inch, which would also be expensive. But then I got to thinking, you know, probably people want to run the spacer that they want to run. So it makes a lot more sense to just cut them out in 10 gauge, and that's what I want to do. I want to run my own spacer per se, my own 4-hole unit. So anyway, we come to these 10 gauge deals, and I have about 10 or 15 of them that I can cut out if anyone else has this issue, and we can do some dealing on that. But overall, they don't do bad. One thing to consider with them is that little piece that sits off to the side. If you want to run a Holley carburetor, it touches over here where that port is, which on the intake I found out the normal Holley carburetor touches, so you have to run a spacer anyway. And again, that's why we came to these units. So they're nice and thin. You know, they don't really mess with your stud lengths, so you can throw your old school base gasket on from like your 80s Mustang here, and then slap this guy on, and then just put a normal gasket and then run whatever spacer you want to run, and you'll be good to go. So again, if you want to run one of these guys, you can just slap it right on there without an issue. Now, Edelbrock carburetors will actually go right on here without any of the linkage binding up and touching this area that sticks out. So you can actually just run an Edelbrock carburetor as is or put a spacer on it. But the one thing I want to mention is you always, if you have a 4-hole intake like this, you want to make sure that you have a 4-hole spacer. It's just bad airflow dynamics to have an open spacer, things coming in, hitting all these flat spots. It's just really not efficient, and it's really overall just going to hinder performance, and you know, just on the principle of it, it's not right. So anyway, I guess that's just my little bit here on solving that issue. If anyone else has ever had that problem, I guess I have plates made, and I have 15 of them or so. It was the same cost me to make 1 or 15, because all the time, all the expense of it is in the setup for him to transfer this file in to whatever software he has and run the laser. So anyway, overall, I think that's going to work good. You can run whatever style of carburetor you want. If you run a spacer with a Holley, you know, then that's fine. And obviously I always recommend running a spacer anyway, because it's nice and insulatory, so you're not transferring your intake heat to your carburetor and messing up your air-fuel ratio and carburetor dynamics there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I guess hopefully we'll sometime this century get this F100 done.